Hi all, welcome to BIAS Academy, Science and Technology Audio Notes for Prelims and Mains, Unit 4, Part 1, Chapter 1. The unit is India's Energy Needs, Efficiency and Resources, Clean Energy. The topics which we are going to cover are Power Development System in India, Classification of Conventional and Non-Conventional Sources of Energy, and the non-renewable energies, under which we're going to see coal-based thermal power, natural gas, shale gas, crude oil, and then we'll look at renewable energies, that is hydroelectricity, solar energy, bioenergy. Under bioenergy, we'll see biogas, biomass, biofuels. After that, we'll discuss wind energy, waste to energy, small hydropower. After that, we'll look at new energies like hydrogen energy, geothermal energy, ocean energy, battery operated vehicles. And finally, we'll discuss about fuel cells and the types of fuel cells, which are phosphoric, solid, alkaline. And then we'll discuss generally about the conventional power, opposition against the conventional power systems in the end. So let's start with our first topic, power development system in India. Energy is the backbone of the economy of any nation. It's an essential input for economic development and improving the quality of life. The development of conventional forms of energy for meeting the growing energy needs of society at a reasonable cost is the responsibility of the government. So, developing any energy at a reasonable cost is the primary responsibility of the government, because energy is the backbone of economy of any nation. Okay. The development and promotion of non-conventional or alternate and new and renewable sources of energy such as solar, wind, bioenergy, etc. are also getting sustained attention. We can see that with the recent opening of solar power station at Rewa in Madhya Pradesh. Yeah. What is the capacity of it? 750 gigawatts. Okay. The nuclear energy development is being geared up to contribute significantly to overall energy availability in the country. Power development in India commenced at the end of 19th century with the commissioning of electricity supply in Darjeeling in 1897, followed by commissioning of hydropower station at Sivasamudram in Karnataka during 1902. The Ministry of Power is the primary responsibility for development of electrical energy in the country. Which ministry is responsible? Ministry of Power. The ministry is concerned with perspective planning, policy formulation, processing of projects for investment decisions, monitoring of implementation of power projects, training, manpower development, administration, enactment of legislation with regard to thermal and hydropower generation, transmission and distribution, all these things. In all technical matters, the Ministry of Power is assisted by Central Electrical Authority. So, in technical matters, the Ministry of Power is assisted by Central Electrical Authority, CEA. The construction and operation of generation and transmission projects in the central sector are entrusted to the central sector power corporations such as NTPC, that is National Thermal Power Corporation, okay, and the National Hydroelectric Power Corporation, and then is NEEPCO, that is Northeastern Electric Power Corporation, and then there is PGCIL, that is Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. This PGCIL is responsible for all the existing and future transmission projects in the central sector, and also for formation of National Power Grid. Which is responsible for formation of National Power Grid? Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Okay, remember for your prelims, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited is responsible for formation of National Power Grid. Programs of rural electrification are provided financial assistance by Rural Electrification Program or Rural Electrification Corporation, that is REC. For any project for rural electrification, the financial assistance is given by Rural Electrification Corporation. The Power Finance Corporation, which provides finance to power projects or projects in power sector. The autonomous bodies, namely Central Power Research Institute, that is CPRI, and the National Power Training Institute, that is NPTI, are also under the administrative control of Ministry of Power. A power trading corporation has always been incorporated primarily to support the mega power projects in private sector by acting as a single entity to enter into the power purchase agreements. A power trading corporation was mainly started or incorporated to support mega power projects in private sector from private sector participation through power purchase agreements. Okay. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, that is MNRE, the Ministry of New Renewable Energy, is the nodal ministry of Government of India at the national level for all matters relating to new and renewable energies such as solar, wind, biomass, small hydro, hydrogen, biofuel, geothermal. The endeavor of the ministry is to promote renewable energy technologies and to increase the contribution of renewable energies in the total energy mix. The ministry has a wide range of programs on R&D, demonstration, promotion of renewable energies for rural, urban, commercial and industrial applications, as well as for grid interactive power generation. The Department of Atomic Energy is entrusted with the responsibility of development of nuclear power in the country. The Department of Atomic Energy works directly under Prime Minister. Very important, remember this, the Department of Atomic Energy. What is atomic energy concerned with? It's concerned with development of nuclear power. It is under the direct control of Prime Minister. Okay. So we have seen the power sector development in India. It was started primarily in the 19th century with the commissioning of electricity supply in Darjeeling in 1897 and then commissioning of hydropower station in Sivasamudram in Karnataka in 1902. After that, we have seen Ministry of Power is concerned with development of electrical energy in the country, like planning, policy formulation, processing of projects, investment decisions, monitoring of implementation of power projects, training, manpower development, administration and enactment of legislation with regard to thermal and hydropower generation, transmission and distribution. So it is supported by different authorities like Central Electrical Authority. For construction operation, it has NTPC, NHPC, NEEPC, then Power Grid Corporation of India Limited for development of national power grid, and then there is Rural Electrification Corporation, there is Central Power Research Institute, and then NPTI, National Power Training Institute, and then Power Trading Corporation. After that, we have seen Ministry of New Renewable Energy, that is MNRE. It is the nodal agency for Government of India for all matters relating to new and renewable energies such as solar, wind, biomass, small hydro, hydrogen, biofuels, geothermal. It has wide range of programs such as R&D, demonstration, promotion of renewable energies for rural, urban, commercial and industrial applications as well. Okay, and then the third one is Department of Atomic Energy, which is entrusted with the responsibility of development of nuclear power. The department directly works under the Prime Minister of India. Okay. Now let's look at the classification of conventional and non-conventional energies with examples. We will discuss this with examples. Energy source all over the world can be basically divided into two types: primary, secondary. The primary is conventional energy source and the secondary is non-conventional energy source. Primary or conventional sources of energy are those which in use from the beginning and are widely used. Almost every country in the world mainly dependent on this type of energy sources for power production. Most of the conventional energy sources are associated with the release of greenhouse gases. What are greenhouse gases? They are carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor. Except hydroelectricity, the remaining all conventional energy sources are non-renewable sources. They include coal, natural gas, shale gas, coal bed methane, gas hydrates, crude oil, nuclear energy. Recently in 2019, hydroelectricity is classified under renewable energy. It is no longer a conventional energy. It is a non-conventional, that is renewable energy. Okay, let's look at the non-conventional energy. These are becoming highly popular and are being considered as a futuristic energy resources. Most of these are not associated with the release of greenhouse gases. Most of these are not associated with the release of greenhouse gases and are considered eco-friendly. They can be divided into renewable energy and new sources. Okay, so the non-conventional can be divided into two, that is renewables energies, and the second one is new energies. So what are the renewable energies? Solar, wind energy, bioenergy, small hydropower, waste to energy. And then the next one is new energies. The new energies include hydrogen energy, ocean energy, geothermal energy, battery operated vehicles. So you might get a question in your mains like saying write about the possibilities or the impact of new energies development. So then you have to write about hydrogen energy, ocean energy, geothermal energy, battery operated vehicles. Okay, now we'll look at the types of conventional energy resources developed in the country. Conventional forms of energy. Traditionally, these are the energy resources which are in use from the beginning, as we said earlier. Even till date, India is highly dependent on these types of energies. Except hydroelectricity energy, all other conventional energies are non-renewable. Okay, the conventional energies can be divided into following types: thermal, hydroelectric, and nuclear energy. The conventional energies can be divided into thermal, hydroelectric, nuclear energy. So now hydroelectric has been under renewable, so it will be thermal and nuclear energy, right? So under thermal energy, the energy derived from burning of coal, natural gas, crude oil is called thermal power. What is thermal power? The energy derived from burning of coal, natural gas and crude oil is called thermal power. According to thermal power, it is divided into three types: coal-based, gas-based, oil-based. So there are three types of thermal power, that is coal-based thermal, the other one is gas-based thermal and oil-based thermal. Okay, we'll study one by one. Like we'll look at the coal-based thermal power, then the natural gas, and then we'll see shale gas, and then we'll see crude oil. Okay. Coal-based thermal power in India, what are its limitations and solutions? We'll look at it. Coal-based thermal is considered as the backbone of energy in our country. The power generated by burning coal is called thermal energy. Okay. Accordingly to the Geological Survey of India, the gross coal reserves of the country are estimated 315 billion tons. As per Geological Survey of India, we have around, there is estimate around that we have 315 billion tons, okay, of coal. These reserves are estimated based on the studies carried out to a depth of 1200 meters of the Earth's crust. Okay, how did they arrive at this 315 billion tons of coal is there? By studying until the depth of 1200 meters of the Earth's crust. These resources are spread over 26,000 square kilometers. Okay. India produced around 638 million tons of coal in 2018-19 and it imported 233 million tons of coal in 2018-19. So India produced 638, it imported around 233. India aims at producing 1000 million tons of coal by 2020, by this year. India stands 5th in the world's coal reserve and 4th in coal production. The working group of Ministry of Power estimated the demand for coal may reach around 1373 million tons by 2021 or 22. Share of coal-based thermal power is 2,592 megawatts, which constitute 56% in the installed capacity. Remember this, the coal-based thermal power constitutes 56%. of the installed capacity. Okay, 60% of the coal extracted in India is used in thermal power production, 7% of the coal is used in iron and steel industries, 5% is used in cement and other unorganized sectors. Jharkhand, that is a place called Jharia, is the largest coal belt of India. What is the largest coal belt of India? It is Jharia, which is in Jharkhand. Okay. What are the problems associated with coal production? Coal has been purified. Let's look at the limitations. Okay. Coal has to be purified to reduce release of toxic gases. Second, mining standards with relation to production of more coal by extraction of future deeper regions are very poor in India. Okay, mining standards are poor. Third one is coal-based thermal power results in huge environmental pollution, that is releasing mainly CO2, which is a potentially greenhouse gas. Next, fly ash generated from the thermal power projects cause serious health problems in the areas of and around the thermal power stations. Fifth is thermal power stations also release high amounts of sulfur, that is sulfur dioxide, which is further responsible for acidic rains, and they show both direct and indirect impacts on the man. So we read in newspapers and the current affairs that Taj Mahal, the color of the Taj Mahal is being faded, or Taj Mahal is being turned into yellow. That is because of the deposition of sulfur dioxide. Okay, these are the limitations. What are the limitations? Coal produces toxic gas, the mining standards are poor, and it produces CO2 and SO2, and also they produce fly ash. So CO2 is a greenhouse gas and SO2 is it is responsible for acidic rains. Okay, then what are the solutions for this coal-based energy? Mining standards of the coal are to be improved, yes, on a regular basis as per international standards. Non-polluting and high-energy efficient resources should be encouraged for energy production, as right alternatives such as natural gas, solar, wind energy should be promoted. Adoption of clean coal technology will reduce the release of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. And the next one is increase in private sector participation in coal mining to reduce and completely reduce the coal imports. So let's recap this. How much coal reserves we have in India? That is 315 billion tons. How did they arrive at? Who arrived at it? Geological Survey of India. So they said there are reserves of around 315 billion tons. By carrying out a study until the depth of 1200 meters of the Earth's crust, they said it is around 26,000 square kilometers. Coal-based energy is the backbone of our country. The power generated by burning coal is called thermal energy. India produced almost 638 million tons of coal in 2018 and imported 233. India plans to or aims to produce 1000 million tons by 2020. India is the fifth in coal reserves, fourth in coal production. 56% of the energy is provided through coal-based thermal power. Most of the coal is used for thermal production. 7% is used in iron and steel industries. 5% is used in cement and other unorganized industries. The largest coal belt in India is Jharia, which is in Jharkhand. This coal-based production has certain limitations. Those are it produces toxic gases, mining standards are poor, it releases CO2, SO2, fly ash, and the solutions for this are the mining standards have to be improved. Non-polluting and high energy efficient sources should be encouraged, such as solar, wind, natural gas, etc. And adoption of clean coal technology will reduce the carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide release. And next is we should encourage the participation of private sector in coal mining. Okay, and so that it will reduce the coal imports. Next we will look at natural gas. What is the potential of natural gas and its limitations and solutions? Natural gas is considered as a 21st energy resource. It has great reserves. India has great reserves of natural gas and can be used in power production as well as in transport fuel. India has around 1339 billion metrics of natural gas in KG basin, that is Krishna Godavari and Kaveri basins. India has around 1339 billion cubic meters, that is BCM, of natural gas, mostly in Krishna Godavari basin and Kaveri basin. More than 95% of the natural gas is methane. Okay. It is more eco-friendly and releases less amount of carbon dioxide when compared to coal. Natural gas can also be used as an alternate to crude oil. The compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas are considered as eco-friendly alternatives to diesel and petrol respectively. The first LNG bus in the country was started in Kerala as a pilot project between Government of India and Tata Motors. The share of natural gas based thermal power in the country is 24,937 megawatts. Okay, which constitutes around 6.9%, that's a 7% of the total installed power of the country. What was the installed power capacity of coal-based thermal power? It's 2,02,000 odd. So let remember as roughly 2 lakhs megawatts, which is around 56.1% of installed capacity, whereas natural gas power capacity is 24,937. You can remember as 25,000 megawatts, which constitutes around 7% of the total installed power capacity of India, of our country. Okay, what are the problems associated with natural gas? The extraction and transportation of natural gas is considered highly expensive. Natural gas pipelines may be destroyed by anti-social elements like Naxals, terrorists might destroy them. These pipes can be destroyed. India lacks enough research and development activities aimed at producing natural gas with less capital. So what are the solutions for this? New technologies to extract natural gas more profitably should be developed. Increased private participation ensures significantly higher production. New sources like shale gas, coal bed methane, gas hydrates should be explored. Okay, let's recap what we've seen. Natural gas is considered as a 21st energy resource. India has reserves of around 1339 billion cubic meters, mostly in Krishna Godavari basin and Kaveri basin. And natural gas can be used in power production as well as a transport fuel. It is more eco-friendly and releases carbon dioxide, but it releases less carbon dioxide. Natural gas can also be used as an alternative to crude oil-based fuels. The compressed natural gas, that is CNG, liquefied natural gas, that is LNG, are considered as eco-friendly alternatives to diesel and petrol. The first LNG bus was started in Kerala, right? The share of the natural gas-based thermal power in total installed power capacity of the country is 25,000. I am saying this is a rough number. Actually, it's 24,937. We can remember as 25,000 megawatts approximately, which is around 7% of the total installed power capacity of our country. The problems of the natural gas are extraction and transportation is highly expensive. The natural gas pipelines may be destroyed by anti-social elements like Naxals, terrorists, or any hazards. 3. India lacks enough research and development in the production of natural gas with less capital. The solutions are new technologies to be developed, increase private sector participation, focus on new sources like shale gas, coal bed methane, gas hydrates, etc. Now let's look at the next one. Shale gas and CBM, coal bed methane in India. And we'll also talk about gas hydrates as well. Okay. Natural gas associated with shale rock formation is called shale gas. Okay. The natural gas associated with the formation of shale rock is called shale gas. India has shale formations in Krishna Godavari, Gondwana and Kaveri basins. Shale gas is extracted by a technique called hydraulic fracturing or fracking. This method involves releasing a mixture of sand, water and chemical additives with high pressure deeper into the shale rock. So What is this fracturing or hydraulic fracturing or fracking method? It involves releasing a mixture of sand water and chemical additives and sand water. Both are released with high pressure deep into the shale rock. Why? To extract this shale gas. Okay, because they are associated with the shale rock formations. Okay, where are they found? Krishna Godavari basins and Kaveri basins. As a result, the shale rock gets fractured with a fissure. Okay, the sand particles keep the fissures open and allow the extraction and release of shale gas. It is estimated that India has around 96 trillion cubic feet of shale gas. It offers great opportunity for India and help in reducing the crude oil imports. ONGC has set up the first shale gas well at Jambusar in Gujarat. Okay. Now let's look at coal bed methane, that is CBM. The methane associated with the coal deposits is called coal bed methane. Methane which is associated with coal is called coal bed methane. Of 26,000 square kilometers of coal bearing area in the country, the area of 17,000 square kilometers has been assessed for CBM. Earlier when we were discussing about coal based thermal power, we said Geological Survey of India has identified 26,000 square kilometers of coal reserves in India, of which 17,000 square kilometers has been assessed for coal bed methane. India has estimated 92 trillion cubic feet of CBM. The CBM production in India has already become a reality. Okay, now let's look at gas hydrates. Gas hydrates are crystalline forms of methane, water present in across the continental margins. Large gas hydrates reserves have been found in India with the help of US and Japan. India has estimated around 1894, that is 1900 trillion cubic meters of gas hydrates along the west and east coast, Andaman Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep Islands. ONGC set up Gas Hydrates Research Center at Panveli in Navi Mumbai. Gas hydrates are the crystalline forms of methane and water present across the continental margins. Remember that. So we have continental margins in India. So there you find crystalline forms of methane and water. So that is a gas hydrate. So ONGC has set up a Gas Hydrates Research Center at Panveli, Navi Mumbai. So now let's look at oil-based power in India, that is crude oil. There is a lot of demand for crude oil in the country. More than 80% of crude oil consumed in our country is imported. How much percent is imported? 80% is imported. Hence, crude oil imports create a huge import deficit. India imported around 184 million tons of crude oil in 2018-19. And the Petroleum Planning and Analysis Cell of Ministry of Petrol and Natural Gas estimates that India may import 233 million tons by end of 2020. India's crude oil production in 2018 was around 34 million tons. Production was around 34 million tons in 2018-19, but we have imported 184 million tons. So you can understand. So that is, we import around 80%. The Prime Minister gave a call of reducing the oil dependency on imports to 67% of consumption by 2022. What is the target? To reduce the imports to 67% by 2022. That is within 2 to 3 years. India is producing 837 megawatts of oil-based thermal power annually, which constitutes for 0.2% of the total based installed power capacity of our country. Okay. How much it is producing? 837 megawatts, which is around 0.2%. The problems associated with excessive dependence on crude oil. What are the problems? The production as well as refining and the use of crude oil results in severe air pollution. Vehicle emissions are a major contributing factor to the particulate matter pollution. Excessive dependence on crude oil based fuels will also endanger our fuel security of the country and also burdens our exchequer. What are the solutions for this? Development of different types of alternatives such as CNG, LNG, biofuel, hydrogen, battery operated vehicles. Okay. Vehicles which have completed 10 years of age as well as diesel vehicles should be banned and to prevent vehicle pollution. Right. So we have seen crude oil production. India imports 80% of it, right? It constitutes around 0.2% of the total power capacity. That is, it generates 837 megawatts. There are different excessive dependencies pose us to certain limitations because it leads to air pollution, vehicle emissions, and it also endangers our fuel security. And what are the solutions? Developing alternative technologies for this, that is depending on CNG, LNG, biofuel, hydrogen and battery operated vehicles. Vehicles which have diesel vehicles especially which have completed 10 years should be banned to prevent air pollution. Okay, now let's look at renewable energy sources. The energy sources which can be used continuously without any degradation are called renewable energy sources. The energy sources which can be used continuously without any degradation is called renewable energy sources. India has great opportunity to develop this type of resource as it's bestowed with a wide variety of resources. There are important types of renewable energy resources like hydro, solar, bioenergy, wind, waste to energy, small hydro, new energies, etc. So now let's look at hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity is the only renewable energy among the conventional energy resources. Okay. The gross hydroelectric power hydroelectric power potential of the country is 1.5 lakh megawatts. India has a great opportunity to make the maximum benefit out of the hydroelectricity. At the same time, there are certain limitations in the expansion of hydroelectricity production. The installed hydroelectricity potential of the country is around 45,000 megawatts, which constitutes around 13% of the total installed power capacity. There are certain limitations. There we look at the limitations of hydropower or hydroelectricity. Land acquisition problem. That is a major problem which affects in the beginning as well as completion of the projects. The next is Government of India is not investing enough in hydroelectricity as it is investing in thermal and atomic energies. Okay. Lack of assured precipitation also restricts the production of hydroelectricity. That is, there is no assured rainfall, right? And what are the solutions for this? Land acquisition can be solved by providing enough compensation to the displaced, as well as providing new settlements before the completion or the onset of the project. Second is taking into account changes in the earth's crust. There is a need to have complete analysis before choosing the site for construction of hydroelectricity. The site has to be selected very scientifically. Okay, now let's look at solar energy. What is the solar energy potential in India? And we'll discuss about National Solar Mission. Solar energy is considered as a complete clean energy and is highly eco-friendly, which can be developed as a right alternative to the coal. India is fortunate to have a higher annual solar radiation. India has annual solar radiation of around 5,000 trillion kilowatt hours in 300 hot sunny days of an year. Okay, in 300 hot sunny days, India has annual solar radiation of around 5,000 trillion kilowatt hours. Okay, the maximum annual solar radiation is received by states such as Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana, Ladakh in J&K. The northeastern parts of the country receives very less solar annual radiation due to the dense canopy of the forest. The two major technologies for using solar energy and solar are solar thermal and solar photovoltaics. What is solar thermal? The technology that converts light energy into heat energy is called solar thermal. These important solar thermal devices are solar heaters, solar steam cooking systems, solar dryers, etc. The solar steam cooking units are placed in most of the religious places. If you see, they are using them very well. Solar heater, these are part of solar thermal technology. And there is another technology called solar photovoltaics. This technology converts the light energy of sun into electricity. So that is why it is called solar photovoltaics. Whereas the solar thermal converts the light energy into heat energy. Solar photovoltaic converts the light energy of the sun into electricity. This technology can be used in developing the grid-connected solar power. There are so many of grid-based SPVs, that is solar photovoltaic devices, also available, which include solar street lighting system, solar lanterns. Okay, now let's look at National Solar Mission. The Government of India launched the National Solar Mission on January 11th, 2010 with the brand name Solar India. What is the brand name of the solar mission? Solar India. So if they ask you about Solar Mission of India or National Solar Mission or Solar India, you have to write about this. It started with the brand name Solar India to rapidly increase the share of solar power in the total installed energy capacity of the country. The aim is to increase the share of solar power. The main objective of the solar mission initially was to achieve 20 gigawatts of solar energy by 2022. What was the main objective? To attain 20 gigawatts of solar energy by 2022. In 2014, the Government of India increased the target. When did it increase? In 2014. It increased the target to 100 gigawatts. During the same time, by 2022, the target is to generate 100 gigawatts. Earlier, the target was 20 gigawatts, but in 2014, the target of solar energy was changed to 100 gigawatts to be achieved by 2022. Okay, the MNRE, that is the Ministry of New Renewable Energy, is implementing this program. The development of solar cities with an objective and transforming the Indian cities into using the renewable energy. Under the program, the Indian cities should develop and use solar energy up to 10% of their total energy utilization. Under this program, Indian cities should develop and use solar energy up to 10% of their total energy consumption. As per September 30th, 2019, India installed power capacity of 28,000 megawatts. Similarly, the rooftop solar installed capacity was 22,000 megawatts. In addition, solar photovoltaic cells system, which is with a capacity of 935 megawatts, were also installed in various parts of the country. The National Institute of Solar Energy, that is NISE, was established at Gurgaon. Okay. The MNRE is implementing solar water heater installation with the objective of expanding the solar water heater installation across the country. And recently, the solar project has been flagged off from REVA, that is REVA in Madhya Pradesh. The capacity of it is 750 megawatts. So for the first time, this solar power station would be providing energy to the Delhi Metro as well. Apart from Madhya Pradesh to its own state, it will also offer the extra energy to Delhi Metro. Okay. So now let's look at bioenergy. Okay. What is bioenergy? The energy derived from biomass. Simple. There are different types of bioenergy, include biomass power, bagasse conversion, biogas fuels, etc. Biomass power. The thermal power generated by burning the biomass is called biomass power. The biomass is used in generation of such power include wood, pulp, logs, sawdust, coconut shells, rice husk, green coffee, cotton, jute, all coffee waste, cotton waste, jute waste, all these things. Annually, India generates more than 500 million tons of biomass. In addition, 150 million tons of agriculture waste is also available. Okay. The second one is bagasse cogeneration. The process of producing gaseous fuel by burning a biomass is called gasification. As on September 30th, 2019, India generated 674 million watts of biogas power, including gasification. Okay, now look at biogas. Biogas is a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide. What is biogas? It's a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide generated from the decomposition of bio-waste like cattle dung, other household waste in rural areas. The production of biogas is carried out in biogas plant. The National Biogas Program was launched in the year 1982. in the year 1982, National Biogas Program was launched. Why? To promote installation of biogas plants in rural areas across the country. Many reputed NGOs, corporate bodies, central and state government departments are a part of this national biogas program. Even though the first generation biogas plants required large spaces, the MNRE is promoting small sized family biogas plants which are highly portable and also require small space for installation. The biogas generated is used for cooking, lighting purposes. Approximately 50 lakh family sized biogas plants were installed across the country. So, approximately 50 lakhs of biogas plants were installed. What is biogas? It's a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide. Okay, now let's look at biofuel. The fuel chemicals like esters and alcohol derived from biomass are called biofuels. The chemicals, that is fuel chemicals like esters and alcohol derived from biomass are called biofuels. The prominent biofuels developed in India are biodiesel and bioethanol. The methyl ester or ethyl ester obtained from chemical modification of oil extracted from a suitable plant species like Jatropha darius indica is called biodiesel. Biodiesel is a great alternative to diesel and can be used by blending with diesel. Okay, bioethanol is the ethanol derived from biomass such as starch, cellulose extract from various plant source materials. What are the plant source materials? Like algae, corn, sugarcane, etc. The ethanol can be blended with petrol and be used as an efficient fuel. The ethanol can be blended with petrol, right? Okay, now let's look at wind energy. Energy generated, or they can ask you about the potential of wind energy in India. Okay. Energy generated from the moving wind is called wind power. India has a gross wind power potential of 3 lakh megawatts. The government of India has set up an ambitious target of producing 60,000 megawatts of wind power by 2022. What was that ambitious target for solar power? 100 gigawatts by 2022. Right. What is the target for wind power? 60,000 megawatts for 2022. Okay. India stands fourth after China, USA and Germany in installed wind power capacity. India stands fourth after China, USA, Germany in installed wind power capacity. The most suitable states in India are for wind power generation are Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh. Tamil Nadu stands first in the installed wind power capacity of the country. This is important for your prelims. Tamil Nadu stands first in the installed wind power capacity of the country. The National Institute of Wind Energy, where is it? Chennai, promotes the research and development activities to increase the wind power potential. In financial year 2016-17, India recorded highest capacity addition in the wind sector with 5,400 megawatts of wind energy added. The installed wind power capacity is 36,000 megawatts, which is equal to 10% of total installed wind power capacity. So, simply put, wind power contribution is 10% of the total installed power capacity of our country. Okay, so now let's look at waste to energy. Not waste, it's waste, W-A-S-T, to energy. So let's look at the common methods to extract this energy. The energy generated from different types of solid, semi-solid waste is called waste to energy or waste to power. Such waste include household waste, industrial waste, municipal waste. MNRE, that is the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, estimates that India can generate 5,600 megawatts of this type of energy. The common methods are thermal conversion, thermochemical conversion, biochemical conversion. What is this thermal conversion? The process of generating heat by burning waste at a very high temperature is called thermal conversion, or technically incineration. I'll spell it INCINERATION, incineration. That is generating heat by burning waste at a high temperature. So this is one method of generating waste to power. The second is thermochemical conversion. The process in which fuel gas is generated by burning carbonaceous waste at temperatures is called thermochemical conversion. Technically, it is called pyrolysis. I'll spell it Pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is a process in which fuel gas is generated by burning of carbonaceous waste. Okay. The third one is biochemical conversion. The process in which the organic waste is decomposed with the help of microbes to generate the energy is called biochemical conversion. Example, biomethanation. I'll spell it BIOMETHANATION. Biomethanation is an example of biochemical conversion. Biochemical conversion is a process in which organic waste is decomposed with the help of microbes. The installed waste to energy of the country is around 140 megawatts. Okay. So now let's look at small hydropower. Any hydroelectric project with a maximum potential of 25 megawatts is called small hydropower project. Remember this fact for your prelims. Any hydroelectric project with a maximum potential. What is it? With a maximum potential of 25 megawatts. What is it called? Small hydropower. This type of technology helps in decentralization of the energy supply in high altitude areas and to highly inaccessible hilly areas. The gross SHP or small hydropower potential of the country is estimated around 25,000 megawatts. The Himalayan region of the country is considered most suitable for the production of this small hydropower. MNRE has set up a target of around 10,000 megawatts of such energy coming in the 10 years. The small hydropower is divided into three types based on their production capacity. The small hydropower, that is SHP, can be divided into three types based upon the production capacities. One is micro, second was mini, third is small. Micro hydropower has a maximum potential of 100 kilowatts. Mini hydropower has a potential of 101 kilowatts to 2000 kilowatts. Small hydropower has a potential of 2000 kilowatts to 25,000 kilowatts. Okay, that is 25 megawatts. Okay. What is small hydropower? Any hydroelectric project with a maximum potential of 25 megawatts. What is the use of this? It helps in decentralization of the energy supply in high altitude areas and highly inaccessible hilly areas as well. There are three types based on the production capacity. One is micro hydropower, mini hydropower, small hydropower. Micro hydropower maximum potential is 100 kilowatts. Mini hydropower maximum potential is 101 to 2000 kilowatts. Small hydropower capacity is, or the potential is 2001 kilowatts to 25,000 kilowatts or 25 megawatts. Okay, now let's look at new energies. New energy is relatively new energy resource which were earlier neglected or could not be developed all these days due to lack of sufficient technologies. So what are the major types of new energies promoted by Ministry of New and Renewable Energies? Hydrogen energy, geothermal energy, ocean energy, battery operated vehicles. Okay, let's start with hydrogen energy. Hydrogen is a clean and eco-friendly fuel that can be used to generate both electricity as well as transport fuel. Hydrogen is a clean energy, eco-friendly, which can be used to generate electricity, and it also can be used as a fuel, as a transport fuel. The use of hydrogen as a source is dependent on the development of fuel cells. To use hydrogen, we have to develop fuel cells. MNRE is implementing National Hydrogen Energy Program, that is NHEP, National Hydrogen Energy Program, with an objective of producing 1000 megawatts of hydrogen based electricity as well as deploying 1 million vehicles that run on hydrogen by 2020. The MNRE is carrying out demonstration programs to run two-wheelers, three-wheelers on hydrogen. Mahindra and Mahindra is the first automobile company which has developed a three-wheeler that exclusively runs on hydrogen fuel. That is called High Alpha. The name of the vehicle is High Alpha. HYALFA, which is developed by Mahindra. Okay, next is geothermal energy. The power generated from the heat energy available in hot rocks of the earth's crust is called geothermal. What is geothermal? The power generated from the hot rocks is called, which are in the earth's crust, is called geothermal. Geothermal power is becoming more popular and already being generated in countries like USA, Philippines, Indonesia, Mexico, Italy, and Iceland. The National Geophysical Research Institute, where is it? NGRI, it's in Hyderabad, has been the National Geophysical Research Institute, which is in Hyderabad, has been carrying out magnetotelluric studies for more than a decade. Why? To identify the potential areas of geothermal power. Okay, India has an estimated gross potential or the gross geothermal power of 10,000 megawatts based on Atlas of Geological Survey of India. Okay, our Geological Survey of India maps the energy potential areas as well. Like for coal earlier we've seen, now we are talking about geothermal as well. The most suitable places in India are for the geothermal production are Surajkund in Jharkhand, Tapovan in Uttarakhand, Tatpani in Chhattisgarh, Parvati Valley in Himachal Pradesh, Puga in Jammu and Kashmir. What are the most suitable areas or the identified areas for geothermal power in India? Surajkund, which is in Jharkhand, Tapovan is in Uttarakhand, Tatpani is in Chhattisgarh, Parvati Valley in Himachal Pradesh, Puga in Jammu and Kashmir. Now let's look at the ocean energy. The energy generated from the ocean system as a whole is called ocean energy. Okay, the energy generated from the ocean, that is ocean energy. India has a very long coastline, hence has a great chance of harvesting such energy. Ocean energy is already available in three forms like ocean wave energy, ocean tidal energy, ocean thermal gradient. India has estimated growth potential of 40,000 megawatts of ocean wave energy. The kinetic energy of the ocean, when is captured by CETO technology for not only electricity generation but also for desalination of the seawater. CETO, I'll spell it CETO. CETO technology is used. Okay, CETO, that CETO is a wave energy technology that converts kinetic energy from ocean into an electric power. The kinetic energy of an ocean swell is converted into electric power. That is called CETO, that is a wave energy technology. Even though India has a long coastline, there are only few areas where high tides are observed. The total gross tidal energy potential of the country is estimated around 90,000 megawatts. Of this, 7,000 megawatts is identified in Gulf of Cambay in Gujarat. Another 1,000 megawatts is identified in Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat, and 100 megawatts is found in Sundarbans of West Bengal. Okay, the energy generated from differences in temperatures between upper warm surface temperatures and the lower cool waters in an ocean is called ocean thermal gradient. This type of energy can be generated when the temperature difference between the two layers is more than 20 degrees. The temperature difference between the upper surface waters and the lower water should be around 20 degrees. Then we can generate this ocean thermal gradient energy. The estimated gross potential of the ocean thermal gradient energy is around 1.8 lakh megawatts. Okay, now let's look at the battery operated vehicles. The vehicles that are exclusively run on batteries are called battery operated vehicles. Okay, this type of vehicles require high density and low discharge batteries. They require high density and low discharge batteries. The suitable batteries include lithium ion polymer batteries, nickel metal hydride batteries. They require two batteries such as lithium ion polymer batteries or nickel metal hydride batteries. The Indian Institute of Sciences at Bengaluru Central Electrochemical Research Institute Jadavpur University in West Bengal, National Chemical Laboratory in Pune are already involved in research and development activities in developing such batteries. The Union Transport Ministry has already asked Indian automobile industry to switch to electrical vehicles. Okay, now let's look at fuel cell. And also we'll discuss about different types of fuel cells. Fuel cell is a device that converts chemical energy from the fuel into electricity. What is a fuel cell? That converts the chemical energy from the fuel into electricity. Hydrogen based fuel cells are becoming more popular throughout the world and are highly promising to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases from vehicles. Hydrogen is a highly eco-friendly fuel and is not associated with the release of any greenhouse gases. Okay, any type of fuel cell generally consists of an anode, cathode and an electrolyte. It's like your battery. It has anode, cathode and an electrolyte. The most common fuel cell are proton exchange membrane fuel cell. It is called PEMFC. This is the most common one, that is proton exchange membrane fuel cell. The electrolyte allows the easy movement of protons between the two sides of the fuel. What are the two sides? Anode and cathode. At the anode, the catalyst breaks the fuel like hydrogen to generate protons and electrons. As the protons pass through the electrolyte towards the cathode, the electrons are drawn from anode to cathode throughout an external circuit, producing a direct current. Such current is used to discharge a battery. You got the point? I am going to repeat it. The most common fuel cell is proton exchange membrane fuel cell. The fuel cells generally consist of anode, cathode and electrolyte. Okay. The electrolyte allows the easy movement of protons between the two sides of the cell. What is the function of the electrolyte between anode and cathode? They help in easy movement of protons. Okay. At anode, the catalyst breaks the fuel like hydrogen. It breaks the hydrogen into protons and electrons. As the protons pass through the electrolyte towards the cathode, imagine a proton is traveling from anode towards the cathode. The electrons are drawn from anode to the cathode. So protons are traveling from anode to cathode. The electrons are pulled from cathode towards anode. Through an electrical circuit, this produces a different current, such as a direct current. Such current is used to discharge a battery. Used to charge the battery. At the cathode, another catalyst causes the protons, oxygen to react to form water. Okay, there are different types of it. That is phosphoric acid fuel cell, second is solid acid fuel cell, and third is alkaline fuel cell. Okay, in phosphoric acid fuel cell, in this type of fuel cell, the phosphorus acid is used as an electrolyte. This type of fuel cells can be at a degrees of 150 to 200 degrees Celsius. Next is solid acid fuel cell. It consists of solid acid material as an electrolyte like cesium dihydrogen phosphate. Third is alkaline fuel cell. Potassium hydroxide or a sodium hydroxide in high concentration is used as an electrolyte. Okay. So now let's discuss about non-conventional energies are they better than the conventional energy sources? Okay, you might get this question in your interview or your essay or your mains. They might ask you how far non-conventional energies are better than the conventional energies. Okay, the development of various types of energy sources and the production of power as per demand are actually very crucial for the social and economic development of any country. The demand for electric power in the country is increasing rapidly. India is still energy deficient and is struggling to meet the energy demands. The breakup of energy resources in India is skewed towards the conventional sources. That is, conventional energy sources are high. That is mostly coal-based thermal. Even though the Government of India realizes the need for increasing the share of renewables in total installed power capacity, still our country is facing technological bottlenecks in the expansion of renewable energy. So, in this scenario, there is a need for having an analytical comparison between the conventional and non-conventional energy resources. The conventional sources are primary energy resources and used from the beginning. The non-conventional energy resources are gaining popularity these days. Okay, except hydroelectricity, almost all conventional energy sources are non-renewable. Most of the non-conventional energies are highly renewable and hence need immediate expansion. The development of conventional energy resources is associated with massive deforestation leading to environmental degradation. The expansion of non-conventional energy is associated with very less environmental destruction. The use of conventional energies like coal, crude oil is associated with release of greenhouse gases and which result in global warming. Whereas non-conventional energy, especially like renewables like solar, wind, is not associated with the release of such greenhouse gases. The major limitation of conventional energy are continuous opposition from civil societies due to reasons like displacement, land acquisition, ousting of indigenous tribes and other forest dwellers, poor compensation. The major limitations of these non-conventional energies are lack of technology for extraction, use of resources profitably, poor contribution to R&D, and heavy dependence on import technologies. The increased thrust of Government of India on highly expensive nuclear reactors and an alleged poor incident response system in the event of nuclear hazards are also reasons of opposition to the expansion of nuclear energy in the country. The slower pace with which the renewable energy is developed for the last 4 decades is also considered as a major responsible factor for less production. Even though conventional energies contribute to close to 80% of the total installed power capacity of the country, they failed in achieving reasonable energy security for the country. The increase in the share of non-conventional energies will definitely help us achieve energy security as well as also in decentralization of the power to the remotest area of the country. India can no longer depend on conventional sources of energy to achieve the targets of Paris Agreement. The non-conventional energies, on the other hand, especially solar, wind, hydrogen, biofuels, they all help us in reaching our targets as a part of commitment to the Paris Agreement. Okay, we have started our class with discussing power sector development in India, classification of energies, that is conventional, non-conventional, and then renewable energies. We have discussed about non-conventional energy resources like coal-based thermal power, natural gas, shale gas, crude oil, and then after that we moved to renewable energies, hydroelectricity, solar energy. We talked about Reva solar power plant, which has a capacity of around 750 megawatts, and it is also providing electricity to Delhi Metro. And then we have discussed bioenergies such as biomass, biogas, biofuels, and then we moved to wind energy. After that, we discussed about waste to power or waste to energy, and then finally next we moved to small hydropower. The maximum capacity of a small hydropower is 25 megawatts. It is helpful in highly inaccessible areas, mostly Himalayan areas. Next is we have discussed about new energies such as hydrogen, geothermal, ocean energy, battery operated vehicles. Finally, we have discussed fuel cells. There are different types of fuel cells, that is phosphoric, solid, alkaline. These are differentiated based on the type of electrolytes. A fuel cell has an anode, cathode, and an electrolyte. Okay, with this we'll conclude our today's class. Thank you for listening. If you need any information or support, please mail us to biasacademy@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.